Welcome to 16 Hours to Iron.
Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about bikes. One of the things that people ask when they're getting into the sport is, do I have to spend a fortune? The answer is yes and no. When you look at all the different things over the time that you're going to spend money on, you're going to spend a fair amount of money, whether it's running shoes and gear like that. It's not a cheap sport, despite the fact that it probably ought to be. The main expense, the single biggest expense you'll have, is going to be your bike, if you choose to go out and buy a dedicated bike, if you're not going to use the one that's already in your garage. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about bikes, different kinds, and some of the practical features and accessories that you're going to want to consider adding to your bike as you go. So let's start off with a really important thing to understand. It's not the bike, it's you. Okay, if you are a strong rider, you can get on my bike, which is sort of a mid-grade. It's like, somewhere between entry-level and mid-grade. It's a good bike. I have a Kitano Roo CD 0.1. I bought it in 2014, and it's a very good age group bike. Obviously, you can pay 3, 4, 5, 6 times as much money and get something a lot fancier, and it's not going to do me any good. I'm going to get about the same speed. I had an old road bike. I had a Trek 1000 that I replaced this with, and my speed didn't really change all that much. And why is that? It's because it's your engine, it's your heart, it's your lungs, it's your legs. That's what's important. With that said, you're going to be considering this is not a normal activity. You're going to be on the bike for 4, 6, 8 hours. If you're doing sprints, if you're doing Olympic distance, or if you're doing half iron, you might be able to go into the garage and take your mountain bike and put some slick tires on it and do real well. If you have a good road bike, you will probably be fine at those distances. When you go to those events, you'll see every kind of bike there is. Single gear bikes, all the way, mountain bikes with knobby tires, the whole bit. When you get to the half iron and you start to think about the Ironman, where you're going to go from 4 hours on the bike, and when I say 4 hours, remember we're talking about the 16-hour type people who are going to be pretty much using up the whole window. You're going to go from a 4-hour ride up to an 8-hour ride. And so when you go to Ironmans or 140.6 distance events, you don't see a whole lot of trashy bikes around. You see a lot of really, really expensive bikes. And when I say really expensive, to me, a really, really expensive bike is anything $5,000 and above. Okay, that's just my personal thing. Expensive goes somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 in my book, and if you can be under $2,000, almost all of the base bikes are somewhere around $1,500 or so, depending on what you're looking at. So, do you have to go out and buy that $6,000 bike? No. If you take a look, this is my wife's. She has a Kestrel Talon. I think it was $1,600, $1,500, and we got it at a discount. My Kitano Roo at the time was retailing at $3,200, and I got it $800 off, so I got it for $2,400. You go out on eBay and find both of these bikes, 1 or 2 years old, at a much reduced price, and they're probably still fine. If you take them in, get them refurbished, you could probably get a really nice bike for a pretty reasonable price. Now, as I just said, both of these bikes we bought at the end of the season. So if you're going to upgrade from whatever you got now in the garage, definitely look at trying to do it in the fall, September, October, November time frame. What's happening there is they're unloading their old bikes and they're getting the new bikes in with the new features. Yeah, you're gonna have the current model versus the new model. You won't have the newest, latest, greatest, coolest things. But 2 years from now, all the bikes are going to be, every year they keep making changes. So you kind of just got to bite the bullet. At some point, you might as well buy the current year model and buy it toward the end of the biking season. Because I got on my bike, I got basically a 25% reduction on the price of that bike, and it made it much more reasonable. So the money that I saved on that paid for all the accessories and everything. So I was able to walk out of there with the bike totally kitted out, and I still had a little bit to spare. So if you're going to buy a new bike, you don't have to necessarily, depending on what you got in the garage. But if you're going to buy a new bike, think about doing it toward the end of the biking season. I've always had this kind of private theory that if you had cash at the end of an Ironman and you stood at the gate coming out, you could probably get a $10,000 bike for about $2,000, because there's some people coming off those rides that are not going to do this again. So I don't know if it'll work or not, but the point is there's a variety of ways to get used bikes that are in really good condition. Definitely want to do a little research. If you want the higher end bike and can't really afford it, look online at eBay and Direct Bikes and some of those other kinds of sites where they're taking these things, refurbishing them, and basically giving you a brand new bike. It might be a year or two old for a lot better price. So with that said, when to buy? In the fall typically, or maybe look at a 1 or 2 year older on eBay or one of these sites. And in the meantime, go ahead and keep using the bike you got. If you got a mountain bike, definitely put slick tires on it. It'll make it a little more manageable, and we'll go from there. So now I want to go over and take a look at the bikes themselves, some of the things to consider as you're looking at them that when I bought it I didn't necessarily think about, and some of the accessories that you might need. Okay, obviously you're going to have the basic accessories like gloves and a helmet. One of the accessories that's really important when you go to the iron distance is the helmet. I had another brand, I don't remember now what it was. I think it was the same brand, but it was a different model of helmet, and it was fine. But this one was a little lighter, and when I say a little lighter, I mean just a little bit lighter. It wasn't dramatically different. But when I was on those 4, 6, and 8 hour rides, even a very small amount of weight makes a real big difference in your neck comfort area. When your neck is holding up that extra ounce or 2 or 3, whatever it is, real quickly, the lightest helmet you can afford to buy comes in handy. So think about that. Of course, good gloves. Shoes, these are gonna, so I don't remember, I think this particular helmet was somewhere in the $180 range. There's all sorts of them, but don't go with the cheapest one just because it's cheap. This is something that, one, it's safety equipment, and two, for that 8 hours on the bike, you're going to want it to be a reasonably light one. So don't go out and get the cheap heavy football helmet. Shoes, the main thing is to get, you don't want to be doing mountain biking shoe or bike shoes. These are triathlon shoes. There's road bike shoes. The main thing is you want a nice firm sole, and you got to pick whether you're going to use the look like the Clio clips or whether you're going to use the pedestal mount clips. I've tried both. I've come back to these, and I'll show you these are the looks or the Clios that they just, to me, they were more comfortable. They're easy to clip out of, more importantly clip out of when you have to stop for some reason unexpectedly. So these are going to range probably $150 plus or minus $50 depending on what brand you use. Mine happen to be Specialized, but there's nothing, the main thing is to get something that's comfortable. They come with, in this case Specialized, they come with body geometry inserts, but I went in and actually got another pair that had a little bit more arch support, and these are also Specialized body geometry parts or inserts. Definitely if you're feeling any kind of uneven pressure in the bottoms of your feet at the end of those long rides, you might want to look at inserts, kind of like the shoes we talked about in the shoe video. That can make a pretty big difference. So these are obvious accessories that you got to have. Now real quick, I'm going to take you down here and look at, this was the style of clip-ins that I used. I used to have the pedestal mounts, and I just tended to go with this and like this. So now let's take a look at the bike. It's kind of dirty, but please forgive that. I haven't had time to clean it up. This is a Katana Roo CD 0.1. As I said before, it was about $3,200 retail. I I got it for $2,400 brand new, and now you can get it for less. It comes with its own set of aero bars, which I used for the Ironman, but the bars that came with it were fixed setting. There was absolutely no adjustments that you could make, except I think they had some wedges to raise the pads up a little bit. So it worked. I mean, it was okay, but upon reflection, I really like these adjustable ones that I bought later. Okay, so let's start at the front of the bike and we'll work back. First of all, I've got two lights here. One is a sort of a heavy-duty Surface 250, what is that, 950F model. I think that's it's either a 150 lumens or something. But you want one really good rechargeable light, because you're gonna use it a lot in your training, and it needs to be rechargeable. I always carry a second light here. This one is it's a USB kind of, I don't even know who makes it, sticks or whatever. It gives me basically enough to get home. If this thing dies on me, I turn this sucker on and it's got really just enough to get me back to the house. It's nowhere near as good as this light, but it's kind of my emergency backup that I tuck up under here. I have a bike computer. You do not have to have one of these. You could get a simple cat eye or something like that, or you can work your way up. This is probably, at the time, this is a Garmin 1000. This was pretty good, pretty high end for age grouper, but not ridiculous. When you jump to the next models, they start getting pretty expensive. The key when you're buying this is, if you're looking at doing an Ironman, some of the Garmin models simply don't have enough battery life to sustain the 8-hour ride. So take a look at battery life on this and size it accordingly. The main thing I use this for is I hook it to my Garmin watch, and I get my heart rate off of my watch sent to here, so I have all my stuff right in front of me, and that way I don't have to be constantly looking down at my watch. I replaced the built-in aero bars with a set of what are these, Profile Designs. Notice that they've got lots of adjustments here. That's all great and wonderful. The reality is, once you've set them, once you've dialed it in, you don't need any of that flexibility anymore. But of course, getting it dialed in is really nice. One of the things, I sort of tuck these down so that the front end is right here in line, that I can put my hands, when I'm in the upright position, I can put my hands here, and it acts like a shock absorber, as well as the normal positions that you might hold the bike. This is really nice. The point is, this multi-adjustable, where these can slide and rotate and this can slide up, is a great asset. But of course, once you tweaked it and got it dialed in, you're pretty much going to lock it in and never change it again. So they become static at that point. A couple considerations on things like the cabling. Notice here, I didn't realize this at the time, I do not like this coming into the top of the stem here. Some of them come into the sides, like my wife's, you can see here, comes into the side, and it makes for having a pouch there that is right up against the stem. This thing constantly slides back, so what I actually did was I came in and I drilled a hole in there, and I don't know if you can see it, but I took a zip tie, came down around and back up inside, and then zipped it up here to keep it from sliding back and forth, and then use the straps to hold it on. But these cables, think about this, if all other things are equal and the cables come in here, it gives you a little more freedom of maneuver in the, what kind of device or pouches and stuff you have here. Brakes, take a look. Some people, these are the old clamp style brakes. Now they have disc brakes, and so that you may want that. As you come back, of course, you're going to need bottle racks of some sort. Take a look at those. Just like in the front where I had two lights, in the back I have two lights. I have another one of these. This is a red strobe, and this is a pretty high intensity red strobe. I have two of those. And then coming up the stack, got the pouch. The one I actually used for the Ironman is this one, and I'm going to get another one
Ross wheel. I was able to put 2 inner tubes, tool kits, patch kits, everything in here, and it has a pouch that I'll show you in a minute. There's a white thermos that fits right in here that I was able to put my my midday lunch in, and it will fit perfectly. And it does have a built-in flasher tail light. So I like this one, and it kind of tucks down here dynamically behind the stem there. That was a really good feature. Okay, so this is the thermos I was referring to. It's the brand name is Under Zero. One of the things about it is it's very, first of all, it doesn't have any bulge. It is a 2 1/4 inch, I think, canister the whole way down. And what I did is I put a burrito in there. I had a chicken and rice burrito that I ate at my lunch break. That was a wonderful idea. It made me feel like a human being again. And this guy right here, it was hot to the touch. I could barely eat it because at 4 in the morning we heated up the burrito, we assembled it, put it in aluminum foil, stuck it in this thing, put the cap on it, put it in the pouch there on the Roswell pouch, and that was 4 or 5 in the morning. And by the time that I ate, it was afternoon, and it was scalding hot. I had to let it cool in order to eat it. So worked really well. It fits in that pouch, and I think that I'm going to definitely do that again, because that combination of pouch, it had all of the equipment I needed, and it fit a thermos that allowed me to bring real food out onto the race that was safe to eat. Last thing I'd say is, the seat is probably the most important thing you're going to get. You will go through potentially a lot of different seats. The seats that look the most comfortable may not be the most comfortable. This one happens to be a Body Geometry from Specialized. It's my wife could not find a seat that worked for her, and she got this one, and it made a huge difference. It totally changed her attitude toward riding the bike. You have to balance the fact you'll never ever totally eliminate the discomfort from riding 8 hours in the saddle, but you can definitely find a seat that is better. I used this seat in the Ironman, 8 hours, and basically got off the bike and I was in good shape. So as we look at the front of the bike and work our way back, light, a primary light, a backup light, a computer of some type to give you your speed information, aero bars. You don't have to get the new one. So this I think was the light was $150. I think this one was like $50 to $80 somewhere in there. I don't know what it was, but it was under $100. This was pretty expensive. You don't have to get this one, but these can range up to $500 depending on what you're looking for. And if you just want to spend a lot more money, they will take it from you. There's some that go for quite a bit more than that. But so a bike computer of some type. The profiles, these particular brand, I think they were somewhere between $100 and $200. Of course, this was relatively cheap, but X-Lab is still pretty proud of their stuff. Of course, a couple bottle racks. These aren't too expensive. Make sure you get one that'll handle different bottles, because you're going to try different bottles as you go. And a seat. This I don't remember the price of the seats, but they're typically $100 to $200 depending on which one you're looking at. And then the lights back here. So you can see there's quite a few items that you're going to need to accessorize, plus your helmet, plus your shoes. So all told, you're talking about a pretty substantial investment. And even if you take the bike that is in your garage right now and equip it for the training that you're going to need. The reason you need this, do you need the light during Ironman? No, you don't. Do you need your backup light? No. Maybe you need your computer, maybe you don't. You probably will need some type of storage. Some people will tape their gels right down the center
thing here, and they don't even use one of these. Comparatively speaking, this is a small part of the price. But, you know, probably you're going to want a computer, probably you're going to want aero bars, probably you'll want some type of container. These are relatively cheap. The seat isn't too bad. Are you going to need the lights during the ride? No. Will you need your kit? Yes, you will need this. Okay, but it's in training that you'll need these other things. So just kind of keep an eye on that, and realize that if you go out and buy a bike at the end of the season, the savings that you get on that bike will help pay for all of this stuff here. So I hope that helps, and remember that the intent is, you got to understand that the bike isn't going to make you or break you, unless of course you're riding a single gear bike or something silly like that. The bike isn't going to make or break you for that 8-hour ride. It's going to be you. But you can get a bike for a reasonable price. This was $2,400. That's a little bit expensive. That was $1,500. You almost can't get any kind of bike of any quality at all, street bike or anything, for less than $1,000 to $1,500 nowadays. So you don't have to spend a huge amount of money to get a bike that will be comfortable. And the things that are going to make it comfortable is your aero bar configuration, your handlebars. Some people like the curl bars, some people like the time trial style here, and the seat. Those are the two things that are going to make the comfort factor for you the most. And then of course your personal gear. So focus on those. Build out the rest of your kit the way you want. Pick a watch as you choose the watch of choice. If you are thinking about an Ironman, you're gonna do one at some point or another. If it's ever occurred to you to do an Ironman, or said to yourself, oh, that's cool, I'd kind of like to do that, guess what? You're gonna do it eventually. It's just a matter of time. So don't buy 6 different watches walking your way up. Buy one that covers at least a half Ironman distance, or buy one that has a battery to cover the full Ironman distance. One or the other, but don't get anything cheaper. And with that said, hopefully this will help you with your selections of accessories and some things to think about on a practical level. When you're out there, be safe. Make sure you pay attention to the road. Remember, be careful about riding on highways. Everyone, you get these biking clubs and they go out and they ride on the highways. There's a terrible problem with texting and driving, and people are getting rolled up. So if you can ride in a more sheltered area, like in a neighborhood or something, definitely look at your riding, your areas that you're riding to make sure you're safe. And let me end with my standard: don't text and drive. Be safe.